Why does it feel like heaven is closed and God has gone silent just when you need him the most? You pray, you cry, you fast, and yet the silence grows louder. You seek signs, but all you find is stillness. You beg for direction, but the only thing that answers is more confusion. Deep down you wonder if God has forgotten you, abandoned you, or worse, rejected you. But here's the shocking truth. God's silence is not his absence. In fact, some of the most powerful moves of God begin with complete silence. It's in those moments when it feels like he's not speaking that he is working the deepest. The silence isn't a punishment. It's a process. It's a holy tension between promise and fulfillment, between calling and completion, between the wilderness and the breakthrough. And if you're walking through a season of silence right now, it could be the strongest evidence that God is nearer than ever, preparing you in ways you can't yet see. The first reason God is silent is because he is testing your faith, not punishing it, not destroying it, but refining it through fire. Hebrews 11 verse 1 tells us that faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. That means real faith is proven not when you hear clearly, but when you obey anyway. When you can't trace God's hand, but you still trust his heart. When the sky is silent and your soul still says, "Yes, Lord." It's easy to follow when the miracles are flowing, when the blessings are visible, when the voice of the Lord is loud. But what about when there's nothing? No sign, no dream, no whisper, just quiet. That's when faith becomes real. God's silence is a classroom where your faith grows up, where it stops depending on feelings and starts depending on truth. It's where you stop asking for confirmation and start living by conviction. It's where you prove that your relationship with God isn't built on goosebumps but on granite. And when you pass that test, when you keep walking even in the dark, you're no longer just a believer, you're a disciple. You're no longer weak in spirit, you're unshakable. The second reason God is silent is because he's protecting you from acting prematurely. We live in a world addicted to immediate answers, instant gratification, quick solutions. But God's timing is not based on our urgency. Sometimes his silence is a barrier to prevent you from stepping into something you're not ready for yet. In Genesis 37, Joseph shared his divine dreams too early and was thrown into a pit by his own brothers. God's promises were true, but Joseph's timing wasn't. If God had spoken too soon, he would have run too fast. And some of you right now are in a holding pattern not because you're being punished, but because God is hiding you. He's shielding you from platforms that your character cannot yet sustain. He's keeping you in the cave, not because you're forgotten, but because you're still being formed. God's silence is often a sign that he's working in the unseen, preparing both you and the assignment so that when the door opens, you're not just called, you're capable. You're not just anointed, you're ready. And if he spoke right now, you'd probably mess it up. So instead, he hides you in the cleft of the rock until the storm passes and the stage is secure. The third reason God is silent is because he's forcing you to confront what's really inside of you. When God goes quiet, every other voice gets louder. The voice of fear, the voice of your past, the voice of temptation, the voice of doubt. And it's in this silence that the idols in your life begin to surface. The things you've trusted more than him, the habits you've hidden, the false gods of control, comfort, and convenience. God doesn't expose these to shame you. He reveals them so he can remove them. Silence strips you of your spiritual crutches. It takes away the emotional highs and leaves you face to face with raw need. And in that need, if you press through the discomfort, you will discover that what you need isn't an answer, it's him. Like Jacob wrestling all night in Genesis 32, the silence becomes your struggle, and you say, "I will not let you go until you bless me." In silence, God reveals your motives. He purifies your intentions. He teaches you that true worship isn't what you do when the music is loud and the lights are on. It's what you offer when there's no sound at all. That's where intimacy is born. That's where trust is built. That's where the real fire falls. The fourth reason God is silent is because he's setting the stage for a greater glory. In John 11, when Jesus heard that Lazarus was sick, he waited. He delayed. He didn't rush to heal, he let death come. And to everyone else, it looked like failure. But his silence was the setup for a resurrection. His delay was the doorway to divine demonstration. Sometimes God lets the situation go from bad to worse, from pain to death, not because he doesn't care, but because he wants to show you that he's not just the God who heals. He's the God who raises the dead. And that includes dead hope, dead dreams, dead relationships, dead faith. You may think it's over, that too much time has passed, that the promise expired, but God's silence could mean that the miracle is going to be bigger than you imagined. The silence before the storm is not the sign of abandonment. It's the sound of heaven holding its breath before the breakthrough. And when it comes, it will be undeniable. It will be supernatural. And the same people who said, "Where is your God?" will have no choice but to say, "Only God could have done this." The fifth reason God is silent, and this one cuts the deepest, is because he's inviting you into deeper intimacy. Psalm 46 verse 10 says, "Be still and know that I am God." Stillness is not inactivity. It's inner surrender. It's the spiritual discipline of resting in what you can't control. In silence, God doesn't just teach you how to wait. He teaches you who he is. You stop trying to make him move, and you start learning to move with him. You stop needing constant affirmation and start craving actual communion. God's silence forces you to lean in, to listen without demanding, to seek him without manipulating. It humbles you. It matures you. It refines you into a person who's no longer living off of answered prayers, but anchored in the unchanging person of Christ. When God is silent, he's weaning you from spiritual sugar and feeding you eternal substance. He's growing you from believer to lover, from servant to son, from consumer to carrier of his presence. And that transformation doesn't happen in noise, it happens in quiet. In the whisper, in the waiting, in the secret place where your name is spoken not to crowds, but in heaven. And if you can learn to love God in the silence, you'll be unshakable when he speaks. So if you're in a silent season right now, don't curse it. Consecrate it. Don't run from it, wrestle in it. Don't distract yourself, dig deeper. Because what feels like God's rejection may be his greatest invitation. An invitation to trust without clarity, to love without conditions, to obey without applause, to grow without being seen. This is the kind of season that produces warriors, not wanderers. This is the kind of silence that forges spiritual giants. This is the silence that shakes hell. Because when the silence ends, and it always does, what comes next will not be ordinary. It will not be explainable. It will not be man-made. It will be the result of a soul who didn't quit in the quiet, who didn't bow to fear, who didn't sell their faith for feelings. And if that's you, if you stay planted in the silence, you'll walk in a power that doesn't need noise, a clarity that doesn't need proof, a faith that doesn't need sight. You'll be the kind of person hell dreads, heaven trusts, and God uses. Don't waste the silence. Let it make you holy. Let it make you still. Let it make you strong.